Now, Republican Andrew Giuliani, the son of Trump's ex-lawyer Rudy Giuliani, and the current New York gubernatorial candidate, has also come out in opposition to transgender rights, invoking the genitals of his 4-month-old daughter to do so. What? I have changed the diapers. I have looked under the hood. She's a woman. I'm going to be the last guy in a long time that looks under the hood right there. But guess what? That is so gross. That is so fucked up. But guess what? She was born a woman, and she's going to stay a woman. It's that simple. I control her sexual organs. I control them. They are mine to control. Like, what the fuck are you saying? I am but a humble sissy who wants to talk about how fellow sissies are doing very fucked up things towards trans people in the trans community and how they need to stop that. So, yeah. All right, I am unfortunately going to be talking about some shitty stuff because I think there should be awareness of how cis people are trying to oppress trans people and talk about why they suck and why it's horrible that they're doing this. But hey, Oklahoma governor signs transgender sports ban. More than a dozen states have enacted legislation limiting transgender students' participation in school sports. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed a bill into law Wednesday banning transgender girls and women from playing on female sports teams, cementing the state as the 13th nationwide to enact such a measure. As he signed the Save Women's Sports Act, Stitt was surrounded by young female girl athletes and other conservative lawmakers holding a sign that says, "Save Women's Sports." He said enacting the measure is just common sense. When it comes to sports and athletics, girls should be able to compete against girls. Boys should be able to compete against boys, the Republican said. Let's be very clear. That's all this bill says. We are protecting women's sports. We are ensuring a level playing field for female athletes who work hard and train hard, who are committed to their team, who have dreams to be number one in their sport, who deserve a fair competition. Because if you work all day and you work really hard and you grow up and you become a professional female athlete, you are going to be treated with a lot of respect from conservatives. They are most likely going to make sure that you are well paid, well taken care of, that all the issues that surround and concern women's sports are addressed at all times, because this is a thing that they care deeply and passionately about, and it's not simply a way to vilify trans people. It has nothing to do with that, of course. Yeah. Between January 1st and March 15th, state lawmakers proposed a record 238 bills that would limit the rights of LGBTQ people, or more than 3 per day. More than 3 per day. Wow. They're really busy. They're hard working. They're busy and they're hard working. You know what's wild is that, like, when they really put their heads to the ground and focus hard, they can get a lot done. Yeah, in politics, that's right. Nothing that actually benefits people. It actually only makes people's lives worse, just across the board. You know, marginalizing communities like the trans community is ultimately going to make life worse for everybody. Because yeah, guess what? You might have a family member you didn't know now, but who may be trans. You might have a relative who may be trans. You may have a friend of a friend who might be trans. Who knows? You know. But yeah, they're working so hard at it. Just this week, after an outcry from LGBTQ plus advocates, the White House and Hollywood, Florida bill, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill into law that prohibits classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity. Now, they're trying to hide the Don't Say Gay bill as being like, well, if you oppose it, you're a groomer, because at the end of the day, I just don't want people teaching kids about sex. Why do you want to teach kids about sex? Okay, why did you add gender identity? Because what does that have to do with sex? It would seem as if, once again, it's an excuse to parlay some bigotry into that. Once again, working so hard and then giving yourself plausible deniability afterwards, being like, whoa, come on. Did you oppose this? Do you understand it? Are you a pedophile? Are you a groomer? Okay, groomer. What, you don't want the anti-grooming bill in there? It's like, no, you're not being intellectually honest right now. And honestly, I don't see why you don't wear this with a thing of pride. Like, why aren't you all very prideful about your hatred and your bigotry? Why don't you all just come out and say it? We hate trans people. You could say that. All of you Republicans, conservatives, you're just dancing around this being like, oh, well, this is a bill to protect kids. Oh, this is a bill to protect women. Oh, this is a bill to protect kids in sports. Oh, this is a bill to do that. These are all targeting trans people. All these bills. There's so many of them. This year, historic tally quickly followed what some advocates have labeled the worst year in recent history for the LGBTQ state legislative attacks, when 191 bills were proposed last year. Measures that would block trans students from competing on school sports teams that align with their gender identity have been amongst the most successful anti-LGBTQ bills filed in recent years, when more than a dozen becoming law nationwide. This year, prior to Oklahoma, lawmakers in South Dakota, Iowa, Utah enacted trans athlete bills. Arizona's governor signed a similar sports measure on Wednesday. By the way, this is not a uniquely American thing, okay? I know Americans right now are like, oh, fuck yeah, we suck. This is shitty. I mean, I'm progressive or lefty Americans, obviously. But no, this is happening globally. This is happening in Russia. This is happening in Ukraine. This is happening in South Korea. Yeah, South Korea just elected a very far-right prime minister, who was running on a policy of abolishing the gender equity institution in that country. So just that. I was also going to turn to the fact that in Britain, after years of delay in which LGBTQ plus people in the UK have continued to suffer as a consequence of conversion practices, it's devastating to hear that the UK government is again breaking its promise to our communities, walking away from its commitment to end conversion therapy. Conversion practices cause extreme and often lifelong distress to LGBTQ plus people. Countries around the world are acting to ban this homophobic, biphobic, and transphobic abuse, and it is shameful that the UK government is not amongst them. We call on the governments of Wales and Scotland to make good their promise to end conversion practices in their own jurisdiction. LGBTQ plus people in the UK deserve better than this. I still remember clearly the pain that those shocks and tears that ran down my face. I didn't need or deserve that treatment. I deserved and needed acceptance. Carolyn, a conversion therapy survivor. Survivor is the right word for it. When I think about how conversion therapy impacted my life, the thing that makes me the most angry is that it stole my time. I'd lost excitement and emotion and vigor for life. Joe, conversion therapy survivor. Now, I say this as someone who's unbelievably straight passing, and I've also had that privilege my entire life, to the point I never even really had to explore feelings of being randomly attracted to men from time to time. I also, by the way, the other day, after watching a documentary and doing some research, realized that I don't think I'm pansexual. I think I'm 100% bisexual. I think the big difference is that pansexuality includes romantic attraction to multiple genders, where bisexuality is sexual attraction to multiple genders. I think that was the biggest difference that was confusing. But at either rate, I could not imagine what it would be like to have to be put into conversion therapy. It sounds absolutely horrifying. People who have gone through the process and otherwise come out about it, survivors have explained what sounds like there's no other way of saying it's torture. It's the torture of children. It's torturing children. It's teaching them that they have been born with sin, that they're choosing a degenerate lifestyle, and with a lot of hard work and torture, they can effectively become better. So yeah, pansexuality is a newer, poorly defined term. Well, here's my thing on this. I don't like the bisexual flag. I'm sorry to anyone else who's bi, who's like, I love the pansexual flag. The color scheme. I'm just talking about aesthetically. I think the color scheme is amazing. Yeah, I love the pansexual flag. I would prefer to have a pansexual flag than I would have a bisexual flag. I know, cancel me. But like, if you were asking me how does it actually relate to you, upon learning more, I learned that I am, yes, bisexual, but I am also a big fan of the pansexual flag. I mean, can I just use that one, you know? So the difference is that bisexuality means that you are attracted to multiple genders, and pansexuality, sexually attracted to multiple genders, but pansexuality means in addition to that, you are romantically attracted to multiple genders. Like, I have no interest in starting a romantic relationship with another cis man, for example, even if I am attracted to them. So that would be what makes someone, I believe, pansexual. At least I haven't experienced that in my lifetime. You know, even if it's a little cutie. Fox News hired Caitlyn Jenner today. Was that something that was rumored for a while? Because there's a handful of channels that have been hiring people recently. I like both flags by through and through. I think I'll be honest. The pan flag is just it's a superior flag. What seems to be straightforward labels for sexual preference or anything, and they even confuse some in the LGBTQ. Yeah, I know. We're not doing labels. Sexually fluid. The meaning of pansexual is clear. Someone who's attracted to either emotionally, physically, or both, to all genders. This includes cisgender, transgender, gender non-conforming. attracted either emotionally, physically. Well, it's the romantic aspect that in my journey, I guess yesterday online, really differentiates bi between bi and pan. But the question is, how can one get the flag? Because this is important to me. Did you know that in 1933, Nazi demonstrators raided the German Institute of Sexology, a pioneering research center that was one of the first in the world to offer gender-affirming surgery to trans patients?
Happy Trans Day of Visibility. For TikTok Unpacks, we're going to be walking through the groundbreaking research started at Germany's Institute of Sexology. Magnus Hirschfeld was a German psychologist and sexologist. As a Jewish gay man, he understood that LGBTQ+ people needed research in order to understand.
The trans flag is the best color combo, not a debate. Oh, without question. It's absolutely by far the best color combination. Yes, 100%. I would I think objectively it's pleasing, it's wonderful, it's cozy while at the same time being strong. Like there's just no two ways about it.
The ongoing struggle for liberation. In 1919, he founded the Institute of Sexology. The Institute was a privately owned research space for the studies of human sexuality. It became one of the first centers in the world to offer gender-affirming surgeries to trans patients. However, on May 6, 1933, Nazi demonstrators raided the Institute. More than 20,000 books were taken from the Institute's library and burned in the streets by Nazi youth groups. It's hard not to wonder how advanced our studies and views on trans and non-binary people would be had the Institute not been destroyed back then. In fact, what little we do know about this institute shows us that gender-affirming surgery was offered long before the first knee replacement surgery. Trans, non-binary, and other gender-variant cultures have always existed, and that should ultimately be celebrated as we build towards our future.
It's funny listening to something like that and seeing, like, you know, the clown shoes left and authoritarian left. Pretty much, this is how I would define them. I'm a leftist, just like you. That's why I enjoy mocking LGBTQ plus people, simping for regressive ultra-conservative policies, and agreeing with the right on everything except economics. Your Hazes, your Jackson Tinkles, your Caleb Maupins, put them all in that category. Someone said, I don't like this flag, I don't like that flag. I mean, let's be honest. And I say this as someone who's, you know, mostly straight. I think the in protest straight flag is so bad. It's like black and white. It's so depressing. Like it's intentionally devoid of color because it's like, we're straight. We're not part of the rainbow. We don't. The absence of light gives us power. Oh, sorry. I got to go back to horrifying things. Conservatives across the country proposed legislation and spewed rhetoric demonizing transgender people. Far-right Governor Greg Abbott of Texas issued a directive to the state's Child Services Department to investigate the parents of transgender youth and child abuse. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida signed the infamous Don't Say Gay bill into law, claiming to protect children from gender ideology in the classroom. Numerous Republican senators and representatives have called for a ban on transgender women competing in women's sports. Now, Republican Andrew Giuliani, the son of Trump's ex-lawyer Rudy Giuliani, and the current New York gubernatorial candidate, has also come out in opposition to transgender rights, invoking the genitals of his 4-month-old daughter to do so. What? I have changed the diapers. I have looked under the hood. She's a woman. I'm going to be the last guy in a long time that looks under the hood right there. But guess what? That is so gross. That is so fucked up. But guess what? She was born a woman, and she's going to stay a woman. It's that simple. I control her sexual organs. I control them. They are mine to control. Like, what the fuck are you saying? While Andrew does not claim to be a biologist, he can tell the difference between a male and a female. It's commonplace for conservatives to oversimplify sex, gender, and anatomy at the expense of transgender people's validity, despite experts repeatedly emphasizing that genitalia does not define gender. It would seem conservatives and Republicans and traditionalists and the clown shoes left are all caught in this very, very weird, preschool level of understanding of what men and women are. You know, that hasn't really evolved past that. It's kind of like, yeah, well, boys have the penis, women have the vagina. Yeah, there's the PP, and there's the hole. That's basically it, right? You know, so there's that. There's that. Interesting. Hey, Beau the Fifth Column had a video that he put out not too recently about how to change minds and why it's important, especially to change minds about things that are socially constructed. Because we do construct a lot of things as a society, and these things can change. What was once to be considered sinful, depraved, and illegal, such as sodomy between two men, is now considered based and pleasurable and acceptable by most of civilized society. So these things can change over time, of course. But how does one convince someone who is, say, of the older persuasion? Because right now, it's not so much boomers, but it'll soon be millennials who are going to be the ones fucking shit up as they take more power in a variety of positions, usually political, stuff of that nature. So how does one convince the millennial who is turning into the boomer? A really good tactic that I have found myself and was recommended in this video as well is if you're talking to someone who has lived through something that has already changed in society, as in they grew up when something was different and then it changed and now they're self-aware of that and they know that the older form of that was bigoted. Such as if you have a grandmother who grew up in a period of time in which there was segregation, in which people were not allowed to dine in the same diners or watch movies in the same movie theaters, ride the same section of the buses. Most likely, that grandmother lived through that old-timey bigotry and racism and has come to understand why it was horrible and would speak out against it, as in, yes, we fought against that and I'm very happy we no longer live in that world. Relating the current situation to that is one of the quickest ways to get them to empathize with the current situation, because it's very difficult when people are trapped into the mindset of, well, this is wrong and it's wrong because I feel it because I don't understand it. I don't understand it and it scares me. And because it scares me and I don't understand it, it's wrong. And that is a very effective method at getting them to try and change their worldview, wrap their head around a concept like that. Also, POVs can be more effective, I find, for people your own age who are still a little bit regressive when it comes to these issues. I've told the story before, but I think it's important for people who didn't hear it the first 12 times. But if you're having a discussion with someone, especially if they are, like, say they think being gay is a choice, a very easy way to explain this to them is like, do you think someone would willingly choose to have a much more difficult life? That's how I used to convince people in high school, because there was a lot of homophobia in high school for my generation anyway. I hope things have gotten better. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I can't speak to that. I don't talk to high school kids, but if they aren't getting better and people are still as homophobic as they were in my time being in high school, that is something that I found even back then was effective at changing people's minds. For people who are like, yeah, they're just choosing to be gay, I don't see why they would. And I was like, but why would they do that? Because you realize this person in high school who is visibly and openly gay is getting beat up, is being called the F slur all the time, is being called a woman and a sissy and all this kind of stuff. Does it look fun? Does it look pleasant? Does it look like something someone would choose to do? In spite of everything? Or does the person have no choice? I mean, do most people have to like hide that because they're worried about that? As was, the time back in the day. And the same thing could be said about trans people, especially trans kids who are about to go through puberty. Because again, imagine and try to explain to them, put yourself in this POV of how horrifying high school can be, between, the bullies, people picking on you, if you wear the wrong glasses, if you have the wrong color shirt, if you're not wearing the right brand of clothing, if you don't collect all the pogs or the Pokemons or whatever the kids are collecting now. I don't know what they collect, nails or something. But no matter what it is, it's very hard. It's very cutthroat, especially if you go to public high school like I did. I don't see why someone would choose to do something that is going to make their lives infinitely more difficult. And also, put yourself in this mind. Imagine all that's going on, and then as you start going through puberty, you start transforming more and more into a gender that you do not associate with. So that's going to be also extra horrifying. On top of everything else, it's going to increase your gender dysphoria, and you're going to be surrounded by a society that is broadly going to criticize you for trying to make a decision in certain areas of the United States, it would seem. So these are very important things. The right globally is waging culture wars on trans people globally, on the concepts of gender, because they have not, again, progressed past elementary school in their understanding of concepts like gender. and sex and all this kind of stuff. They're kind of still stuck in this, okay, well, a boy penis, girl vagina, that's how it goes, right? So yes, they do need to be educated on these topics. It doesn't need to be 0 to gender fluid in terms of their understanding of all this kind of stuff. I'm sure concepts like that are probably going to be very difficult for someone who's like, oh, I'm not against trans people. I think everyone can just do what they want. I just do it as an adult. I don't want to stay away from the kids. That's my view. Okay. It's like, well, I'd like to explain to you something called gender fluid. Yes. Or maybe agender or a gender trash, as Jim Stephanie Sterling is one to do. So there's that. But anyways, it's something that all of you can, in your own way, work towards pushing against, towards changing minds, to spreading love, frankly, because that's ultimately what you're doing. If you are getting people to become more empathetic, if you're getting people to become more understanding, if you're getting people to become more accepting, and you're doing that broadly speaking in society, it is a movement towards more love on Earth, which is a very good thing. It's something this planet could really use. So, go forth, my wonderful lefties, use your empathy goo. Get out there and change minds and hearts and get people to understand that they should not be afraid of trans people or even gay people or bisexual people or asexual people. They should not be afraid of them. They should love them. That's honestly, that's my 2 cents on all this. Oh yes, and Two-Spirit people as well. Shout out to my Two-Spirit fam. Absolutely land back. And also, land back. Let's give that land back. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to conduct many a human sacrifices in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble yet incompetent jesters, trying in vain to bring some levity into your life. To our Lord Trevor R., we give you thanks for this meager plot of land for us to toil away our pathetic existence. To our brave knights, Carl Wauer, Tony, D.M. Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruben Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We salute our mighty heroes off to conquest some bread in some far-off land.